So, after Little Ghost Kyutaro, Tokyo Movie made Star of the Giants in color, and this was a huge hit. They grew in confidence after Star of the Giants. Next, they made Lupin III to target an adult audience. So, what was going on during that time? It was 1968. Lupin III was still in the magazine. At that time, Yasuo Otsuka, now a veteran animator who was an animation director of the Castle of Cagliostro and is still working. He is quite a character. But anyway, at that time, he was at a racing circuit in Chiba for his hobby. I don't mean a racing circuit for toy cars. You take your own car there and race. So, Otsuka owned the same Fiat that Lupin drives in the anime. It was Otsuka's favorite car. He drove his Fiat to Chiba and raced around the circuit vigorously. He was in the actual competitions, so he was playing the real games. One day, he noticed this strange guy who had always come and sat near him. He was wearing light brown sunglasses and he could see his thin, shady-looking eyes through the lens. And the guy went, "This place is amazing. So what do you do for a living?" "Oh, anime, huh? Erg, Japanese animes don't know how to draw cars." Then he said, "So you are an animator. Can you draw these real cars racing in the circuit this powerfully? I don't think you can. I don't think any Japanese animators can." Somehow this mysterious guy kept pressuring Otsuka. Otsuka was like, "What is wrong with this weird old man?" The guy was actually Fujioka, the CEO of Tokyo Movie, and Fujioka was trying to headhunt Otsuka, just like he did to Mushi Production animators. Otsuka was a staff member of Toei Animation at that time, but Fujioka wanted him in his own company and to join Lupin III, so he came to the auto races every week, which he wasn't really interested in, just to entice Otsuka little by little. Eventually, though, Otsuka started thinking, what a weird guy, but he's kinda interesting. However, by then, Fujioka had already recruited a colleague member of his puppet theater called Masaaki Osumi as the director of Lupin III. But Lupin III was struggling to find a sponsor and broadcaster. They set the goal to make an anime for adults, but no one ever wanted such a thing. All animes were targeted at kids, and no matter how cheaply made, they all earned a 20% or 30% viewing rate. It was that kind of an era. A fun anime would earn 40%, boring ones 20%. So the makers thought there was no point in doing extra work or risking themselves by making an adult-targeted anime, which PTAs would attack. Sponsors hated the idea as well. But Fujioka was an eager man. Meanwhile, he also obtained the copyright of Moomin. This was because Big X was a manga by Osamu Tezuka. Little Ghost Kyutaro was by Fujio Fujiko. And Star of the Giants was by Noboru Kawasaki. They couldn't make a profit out of Japanese mangas because the publishers owned the rights. Fujioka was ambitious to make his businesses bigger and global. He was one of the first people in Japan to start anime adaptations of juvenile literature. That's why he first bought the rights to Moomin and made it into an anime, which Otsuka joined as a production team member. Meanwhile, Miyazaki and Takahata thought Toei Animation had no future, but Tokyo Movie did for producing Moomin. So they joined A Production, which was a subsidiary company of Tokyo Movie. Then they tried to make Pippi Longstocking there. Sorry, I'm deviating a bit. So back to the timeline, Miyazaki and Takahata joined. Okay. Right here. He entered A Production in order to produce Pippi Longstocking. But even so, they couldn't receive a green light from the author of Pippi Longstocking. That's the overall flow. But Miyazaki and Takahata didn't have any clue on how Pippi Longstocking would be rejected by the author. Because they had a good feeling when they were in negotiation. But that was also when the TV version of Lupin III finally started. Miyazaki was interested in Lupin III to some extent, but didn't think it was his job to direct it. So the first season of Lupin III began directed by Osumi. Osumi's concept for Lupin was to set characters who reflected the post-60s young generation in Japan, who no longer had any passion or interest in politics or social activities. To be more specific, Lupin is a descendant of a French aristocracy. His grandfather, Lupin I, was the master thief, Arsène Lupin. So he's super rich. Lupin III received a great inheritance from him, so he actually doesn't need to steal. He rather wants to have fun because he's bored. That's why failing to steal doesn't mean anything to him. He just laughs it all away and indulges in women, gambling, and wine. He just lives hedonistically every day. That was Osumi's plan. And their sponsor finally accepted that plan. Because their sponsor was that well known, cough drop brand in Japan called Asada Ame. As you all know, Asada Ame being a snack or a drug company, well, it's a drug company. So, being a drug company, they couldn't allow their sponsored anime to have a main character who stole in every episode. Asada Ame's request was not to let Lupin kill people, even though he's a thief. And their next request was to not let him steal things. That's why Lupin is a thief, but fails every time. Or even when he succeeds, he ends up stealing invaluable things. This was the original setting for the TV series, which was kept until today. That's why, although Lupin is a thief throughout the series, he rarely succeeds in thieving. There's a scene in the opening where he is on a helicopter with a piece of jewelry he has stolen. Although there are moments, he usually fails in the episodes. But that was intentional. But that didn't matter, because in Osumi's concept, he's a descendant of aristocracy and has great wealth.